Yep.
In like a
All right,
minute.
the audio's on.
What?
No, the stream, like the audio's on. I think.
The video's now.
It will. It has to catch up. Give it a second. Let me know when it's working and if it's lagging or not.
Check the chat, by the way. Oh wait, never mind.
Did you give me mod, Evan? Yeah. Alright, the audio's on.
Yes.
Alright, check the chat now.
Oh wait, I just heard.
Yeah, I
Okay.
heard it, but it's super laggy.
Is it laggy?
Well, it's just like a little bit behind.
Oh, the delay should be normal, but is the audio good and the video
No,
good?
no, the audio's good. The
Audio
Oh,
and video.
okay,
are both
perfect.
Okay.
Okay. Cool. So, can you mod me, Evan? Blah, I'm gonna say something in the chat and then you have to mod me from that. I'm a mod now, guys. Okay, 16 people. We gotta do... Hold on. Everyone should... We gotta get some more people before we start real quick. I'll post on Reddit. By the way, this is like all being live streamed.
Oh, sorry.
Added all my fans.
Yourselves?
Your what fans?
All my fans in the chat. You know, if you're a Jeremiah fan, type
No
1.
one's a Jeremiah fan.
If you're here
Or
for
anything
Sumbo-
else, type 2.
Jeremiah.
Where did
No
Evan
two
go? He
typers.
just dipped. Okay. Actually, I'm gonna text Evan to put it in. Evan, can you Reddit post while I moderate? Thanks. Okay, cool. 21 people.
We get a Reddit post and everything?
I know. Aren't we so cool and
Let's
so
use
special?
Reddit.
Oh. Jerry, you just got roasted in chat.
Wait, there's a chat?
Yeah, the live stream chat.
Oh god.
Are you not see? All your fans are in there, Sean.
I closed it. I have fans.
Yeah.
Can I get a Keck W in the chat for
Shut-
Sean Wallace, please?
Okay, let me get up a flow and then we'll start because I'm dual.
I can't see
I'm
the
dual
chat 'cause I'm like-
computering right now. Look, I'm gonna get a flow up on my laptop. Yeah. I will also be linking my flow in the chat or in the description after the round so people can like it's like computer flow.
W in the chat for Sean Wallace, please.
Whoever has it echoing, turn it off. Okay. Free flow. Are y'all ready?
Wait one sec.
Mhm.
Are we first?
Yeah.
Alright.
Okay, is it Af first next second?
Yes.
Okay.
Since we are affirmative.
Welcome everyone to the Nova demo debate. Before we start, a few things. First, initial signups are closing on the 31st of April. So if you haven't signed up, make sure to do that now. Second, if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. I'll be answering them periodically throughout the demo debate. They should be questions like about the round, but if there's any questions about Nova as a camp in general, feel free to put them in the chat. I'll be answering that during prep time and as I'm moderating the round. I think periodically I'll stop and like give some thoughts and then we'll go over at the end. And yeah, so it's going to be Jeremiah and Sean speaking first on the AF and Katheryne and Sophia speaking second on the neg. So, and it's the April topic. So if everyone is ready, let me get this flow started. We should be good to go, and I'll mute myself. I will mute myself as we're starting. Okay, we have 24 people, and I think people are gonna pop in as we go and go back. So let me mute myself here.
Okay, sure. All right. All right. I'm Sean Wallace. I debate for Sidwell Friends in DC. And you should come to Nova because if you want to get better at public forum, it's a great way to do so without having to spend lots of money on debate camps. You'll get really good instructors that have good knowledge of like the current meta and stuff. Yeah. I'm going to be reading the first constructive for the affirmative side of the resolution for the Tournament of Champions. Is anybody not ready? All right, cool. We affirm, and our first contention is Taiwan. The Ukraine invasion emboldens Chinese aggression towards Taiwan and ensures an invasion will only be met with sanctions. As Olsen 22 explains, that while the West has done well to sanction Moscow, its task has been made easier by the relative insignificance of the Russian economy. Taking action against an authoritarian regime that is an economic superpower will be far harder. The West needs to plan its strategy for when China attempts to take Taiwan by force. Senior officials from President Xi have repeatedly pronounced that they intend to bring what they consider a renegade province back under control. Article 9 revision solves by eliminating the strike gap which exists in East Asia. Japanese strike development utilizing missile-based attacks collapses the theater of victory for China. As Morano 20 explains, that a challenge of security in Indo-Pacific is looming. US-Japan alliance are facing challenges as adversaries improve capabilities. Of concern is the strike gap. If this continues, Japan will find it difficult to deter China. The exclusively defense-oriented policy is the basis of Japan's strategy. Japan does not have land-based long-range missiles, leaving it outmatched. If Japan tries to build defensive capabilities to counter China, it will face greater shortage. Japan would soon exhaust interceptors' capacities. Maintaining exclusively defense-oriented policies equal to narrowing options is not enough as to establish counterattack. The likely scenario is for the PLA to carry out conventional salvo in conjunction with other attacks such as cyberspace and electromagnetic fields. China's A2AD capabilities outpower the US's regional strike capabilities. Therefore, Japan considered not only optimization, but also how to bridge the strike gap between the US-Japanese alliance and China. In an attack on Taiwan, China could be expected to begin with a massive effort to degrade power production of the US. This would involve a missile salvo to prevent the United States' defensive commitment. Japan needs a long strike option. The best option would be a ground-based missiles to attack fixed targets. China would be hard-pressed even after preemptive strike. Even if the US and Japan's capabilities are damaged, if China's offensive counter capability is damaged, its theory of victory will collapse. Even in limited China, conflict precipitates escalation dynamics that go nuclear. O'Hanlon 19 finds that once a blockade began, it would be escalating conflict pitting the US, Taiwan, and Japan against China. Both sides would lose low altitude satellites, cyber, as well as command, control, and communications capabilities, so war would be fought in a fog. China might conclude its interest in Taiwan warrant nuclear brinksmanship with a use them or lose them dilemma. China would attempt a large-scale cyber attack into the US and Japan to incapacitate the US grid. The system might remain damaged for many months. It might be the type of attack that the nuclear posture review envisions as a basis for nuclear first use. Assets to operate military attack would throw monkey wrenches, even if they began as very limited. No one expected to go nuclear. Conflicts could develop escalation dynamics that would be hard to control, as escalation dangers would rise precipitously. That would cause extinction, whereas Wishman 18 finds that nuclear weapons put the future of life on the planet at serious risk. If less than 1% of the nuclear weapons in arsenals were to explode, debris would enter the stratosphere, lower the Earth's temperature, destroy the stability of the ozone layer, and end agriculture as we know it. A nuclear exchange could end civilization everywhere. Outside of Taiwan, Article 9 revision gives Japan the lead in regional contingencies, which pacifies the Indo-Pacific. Sidaris 18 writes that despite history, Japan remains pacifistic. Just given the growing threats in the Indo-Pacific, Japan will need to better defend itself. The deterrence effects of JSDF fades as China gains. A more proactive stance is required. Article 9 remains a barrier. Allowing the JSDF to become a full ally and a contributing partner to other coalitions is imperative. Threats from the PRC and North Korea loom. Energy and resources will lend to conflicts. The JSDF can restore the balance of power. The US supports the revision, allowing Japan to take a leading role, stepping aside to give the JSDF the lead, proving the worth of the JSDF and highlighting the limitations under the current Article 9. The Japanese would appreciate their responsibility. Adversaries would be less threatened by the US's supporting role. That's we affirm.
Hello. I'm Sophia. I've been involved with Nova for pretty much longer than I've been involved with anything in my entire life. And the reason why is simple. They do good work for no money. While it might not be able to bridge the strike gap, Nova does definitely bridge the accessibility gap between people who have a lot of money in debate and those who don't. With that in mind, I will be reading the negative constructive. Is everyone ready? Sounds good. We negate. Our first contention is credibility. Japanese remilitarization signals decreased confidence in U.S. credibility. Wadsworth 19 writes, the Japanese offensive capability could decrease regional confidence in the credibility of U.S. power. A move might be interpreted as a sign of Tokyo losing confidence in the U.S. This could start a chain reaction, increasing instability in Asia. Weakened U.S. credibility causes South Korean proliferation. Montero 18 writes that when commitment appeared to weaken in the past, Seoul considered building an independent nuclear arsenal. Reliable commitments from Washington have dampened Seoul's nuclear ambitions. Seoul would resuscitate its nuclear program, even if that meant facing U.S. sanctions. Seoul's determination to ensure the security of South Korea would mean that, in the absence of robust U.S. security guarantees, the South would be willing to absorb considerable economic costs in order to acquire a nuclear arsenal. South Korean proliferation leads to global proliferation. Jackson 15 writes that were the US to abandon South Korea, the global taboo against nuclear proliferation would dissolve and new nuclear powers would emerge, starting with South Korea. When South Korea's president saw indications of US abandonment, he launched a clandestine nuclear program. South Korean elites have linked their refrain from going nuclear with the continuation of US alliance. If South Korea violated the nuclear non-proliferation norm, it would risk a norm violation cascade. Nuclear proliferation causes nuclear war. Kronig 15 writes that there will be more states in possession of nuclear weapons, the greater the probability there will be a catastrophic nuclear war. Before MAD, new nuclear states go through a transition period in which they lack a secure second strike capability. One or both states might believe that it has an incentive to use nuclear weapons first. They might feel to use them, or use them or lose them pressures due to reciprocal fear of surprise attack. One might start a war in the belief that war is inevitable. Our second contention is China. China is reactionary, not preemptively aggressive. Per 16 writes that China's growing military capabilities do not reflect expansionist intentions and instead derive from Beijing's security and historical experience. History has not been kind to China. It lost territory and has lagged behind Japan. China's western regions are occupied by ethnic minorities which are vulnerable to separatist sentiments. The Chinese believe they have been bullied, and their goal is not to dominate, but to avoid being dominated. Article 9 revision forces China to act. They feel threatened by Japanese remilitarization. Sterling 11 writes that if Japan carried out an amendment of Article 9, it will put East Asia in serious jeopardy. China will dislike whatever Japan proposes in collective self-defense and will perceive it as a sign of Japan's remilitarization. If Article 9 is revised, then the Japanese self-defense force would be allowed to engage in military operations with no restrictions on nuclear weapons. This would damage relations with China, North Korea, South Korea, and the international system. In light of China's growing influence as a nuclear-armed power, the question of Japan's ability to send military forces represents another destabilizing factor. Political leaders have not forgotten Japan's imperialism and remain mistrustful and antagonistic. Article 9 is crucial. Axleaf 13 furthers that militarization could pose a severe threat to regional balance and provoke China into preemptive action against Japan. Many Asian countries have long memories when it comes to the history of Japanese military power. The refusal of Japanese political elite to acknowledge those horrors makes the specter of Japanese military power that much more threatening. Japanese offensive capability causes war. Wadsworth 19 writes that China would offer harsh actions that could further decrease regional stability in an already tense security environment. The environment is even more tense as a result of Korea's acquisition of nuclear weapons and China's island reclamation efforts in the East and South China Sea. Support from Washington for Tokyo's armament would fuel Beijing's narrative that an aggressive and hegemonic United States is fixed on containing China and would be used to justify China's own increased militarization. It would end dialogue on territorial disputes. Heightened mistrust may increase the likelihood of a gray zone conflict escalating into war if Japan had the capability that could be used to preempt a perceived imminent attack from China. Beijing would preempt Japan, causing an escalation that would draw on the United States. Even a small nuclear war causes extinction. Winkman 18 writes that nuclear weapons put the future of life on the planet at serious risk. Less than 1% of nuclear weapons in the arsenals, if they were to explode, would cause debris to enter the stratosphere, lower the Earth's temperature, destroy the stability of the ozone layer, and end agriculture as we know it. A nuclear exchange could end civilization everywhere. Thus, we negate.
We didn't cross now, or is there like question and answer or something?
Sounds good.
Okay, so basically, how the two cases are playing out right now is that there's obviously going to be a lot of clash between the AF's sole contention on Taiwan and the NEG's second contention on China. So both arguments are impacting to generally the same impact scenario, although AF's argument is more focused towards like an invasion on Taiwan specifically. However, I think something that NEG does that is really good is that the first chunk of evidence in their C2 is all about how China reacts as an actor. So a big strategy for this topic could be looking at how China reacts. Are they reactionary? Do they preemptively attack? Are they aggressive? Are they expansionist? And why or why not? I think you're already getting some warrants there. For example, there are a lot of ethnic minorities in China which could become separatist given the chance of a war, so that's the reason why they might not be expansionist. So having those kind of warrants as to why China or different actors will act a certain way can be really important as you get into these big clash scenarios at the back half of rounds. I'll answer any questions in the chat. I'll do that after First Cross, but now we'll let First Cross start.
All right. Sophia, mind if I get first question?
Go ahead.
All right. This second argument about China, the first card you read says China is not expansionist due to the fact that they've lost territory, kind of been aggressed against. They don't want to expand because they don't want to provoke further aggression. You then read a card at the bottom of the case that they would view Article 9 as encirclement, which would cause them to be aggressive. So which is it? When China is threatened, do they withdraw or do they lash out?
So it's not a question of when China is threatened, which makes them take the posture of a defensive realist. They're not looking for new conflicts to start, but certainly if they're being aggressed against, they're going to defend themselves. It's an issue of territorial sovereignty.
I mean, but you've read evidence at the top that they're being aggressed against in the status quo. The cards you read said that they already feel that they're being aggressed against due to Korean nukes and U.S. expansionism in the region. So what's the warrant for why Article 9 is the bright line?
So the distinction, once again, between just general aggression and encirclement is severity, right? When you're encircled, you have no choice. You're backed into a corner. We tell you that that's how China views Article 9. It is the straw that breaks the camel's back and they have no choice but to attack.
All right, go ahead.
So your case narrative says that China is on the brink of invading. Why?
Well, they 1 second, let me pull up the card. Computer's being slow. It says that because the West is so focused on sanctioning Russia due to the Ukraine crisis, it creates a golden opportunity for China to expand in Taiwan. If you're asking why they want Taiwan in the first place, they view it as a regional territory and taking it as a key part of like their regional security.
Well, I was more so asking why China wants to invade specifically now. But that's
it's because the West is so focused on Ukraine that they don't believe they would be able to respond.
Sure, but isn't your evidence saying that that would just make it a good opportunity if they were to want to invade?
Well, no, it says it's a good opportunity now and they want to invade. It cites leaders in the Chinese military specifically saying that they're saying now is when we want to attack. So like, I feel like the evidence is pretty good.
That's fine. You can take a question.
All right. Kronig user lose pressures. What's the warrant for why these didn't cause nuclear war? Historically, when countries like Israel, Pakistan, India proliferated.
They're not Japan.
But your Kronig evidence is obviously not about Japan. It's from 2015 and it's talking about nuclear weapon proliferation in general. It says that in general, nuclear states face user lose pressures because they don't have a second strike capability yet. Why didn't that apply to other nuclear states in the past?
I know, I understood the question you're asking. I'm saying that there are different pressures on those states than there are on Japan. Those states didn't have a massive nuclear neighbor like China breathing down their throat and likely to lash out against
Pakistan didn't have a massive nuclear neighbor on their border breathing down their neck when they proliferated. That's cross. That's cross.
Of it, but it's fine.
Jared, do you want prep to get that stuff I just sent you? All right, how much
I'm
prep?
chilling, I think.
How much is it at TSC? Is it 3?
Yeah, it's 4 at TSC.
Wait, what?
I thought, all right, I'll do 3 though. I don't know.
I feel like this is a lie.
Oh yeah. So while they take prep, I'll answer some questions in the chat. Okay. So Sarong asks, oh my god, I can't speak today. How do you think the back half will progress throughout the round? I think there will be inevitable clash on China and the actor incentive and the uniqueness debate on whether China is going to view the situation in Ukraine as a reason to invade or some sort of counter warrant from the neg as to why that's not a reason to invade or why there are other reasons not to invade, or maybe analyzing China's actor, like Xi Jinping's actor, in a different light. I think it will come down to that, because normally when you have soul contention arguments, the ways that you respond to it and it just inevitably creates clash if there already is some sort of counter argument on the neg, because obviously if you weren't reading like the neg version of that argument, you'd be reading that as a turn. So I think that's going to inevitably create some clash, but there are ways that the neg could try to get around that by going for their C1. But yeah, I think the uniqueness debate is going to be very important, and I think there's going to be a need for some really good link level weighing. Because obviously you can't really do any sort of impact analysis. So this is going to be a really great example of how to do link weighing, and yeah, I think that's going to be how the debate turns out. Who's my favorite debater? Myself, no. My partner, Carson. He's my favorite debater.
Alright, I'm chilling.
Okay.
Are you good?
Jerry's good? Alright.
Down the neg. Okay. Y'all good? Cool. On the C1, concede the link. US pulling out of the region would probably lead to proliferation. That's good for a couple of reasons. First, prolif is good because it stops bioweapons from happening. Nuclear weapons mean states don't pursue bioweapons. Nukes are perceived as more effective. Harwitz 14. Nuclear weapons possession has a negative effect on bioweapons pursuit to 0. They make possessions of WMDs less relevant because you have a nuclear option. Many countries have abandoned their biological weapons programs in response to nuclearizing. Second, prolif is good because it leads to less conflict. Proliferation decreases the risk of conflict. Machine learning simulations prove. Susky 15, a larger number of nuclear states decreases interstate conflict. There is no evidence that new nuclear states increase conflict. Prolif decreases conflict through extended nuclear deterrence and fear of nuclear states intervention. Dyadic level empirics cannot be relied on for our simulations. Third, prolif is good specifically for Japan. Right now, latent proliferation is happening, which takes out your prolif bad offense, Bernie 16. Major developments would suggest that fundamental changes on the horizon. Appearances are deceptive. Japan's de facto nuclear weapon status will increasingly come to fore. As nuclear proliferation and conflict points to escalate in East Asia, Japan's stockpiling of weapons usable plutonium is driving further proliferation in the region. Latent proliferation capabilities create nuclear ambiguity that decks the NPT effectiveness, which is their internal link to global prolif. Bernie 16, its tack and nuclear development, the formal truth justifying plutonium in its energy security considerations. The reality is that Japan's plutonium program has nothing to do with the energy security of the country and everything to do with national security. Proliferation is being conducted in a highly unstable region with enormous uncertainties to its future security needs. The ambiguity of Japan and what they could do with their plutonium while remaining an active member of the NPT demonstrates a major flaw in the NPT as a whole, where a nation possessing nuclear weapons material is judged on political allegiance and not their having nuclear material. Nuclear ambiguity and opaque proliferation is the only scenario for nuclear miscalc and escalation, which is their link to nuclear war and also causes nuclear terror, which is a unique place to vote for us. Wesley 05, the NPT makes opaque proliferation the only option. Opaque proliferation is destabilizing national security. It breeds miscalculation that can force catastrophic moves. Even more dangerous is the likelihood that states will develop weak fail-safe mechanisms. Miscalc may also appear more likely given uncertainties about the adversary's capabilities. States undertaking opaque proliferation rely on transnational smuggling networks that are easy for people like terrorists to steal from. The NPT could be contributing to terrorists with armed nuclear weapons. On their impact evidence on the C1. This card is super bad. MAD always exists. The internal link to like a bunch of states going to war with each other is this transition period where there's no mutually assured destruction, but independent things like submarines, hidden silos, allies, etc. ensure that mutually assured destruction is always a threat, which is why, although dozens of states have already nuclearized in the status quo, none of them have just randomly shot a nuke at another country because they were worried about getting first strike. They are smart enough to spread their nukes out, not put them in one basket. On the C2. On the C2 of China, A point on the uniqueness evidence that they read in case it's super outdated. Ukraine proves that China is really willing to invade a country because Russia didn't face that much of a blowback and is kind of able to survive. And our evidence that we read in case says that China would be able to be more economically independent, so they know they wouldn't even face these same pressures that Russia has. Second, in-country propaganda has primed the population that any invasion of Taiwan is reactionary to U.S. influence, meaning that if being reactionary is kind of the key thing here, Chinese citizens are already willing to invade. Third, China wouldn't feel threatened. Japan literally gave up the right to war, and that part of their constitution isn't going away. It's the internal link evidence that they read. This is also empirically proven. Japan's been militarizing for years through loopholes, and China definitely has not reacted. Richter 16. National Police Reserve brandish M1 rifles, machine guns, mortars, flamethrowers, artillery, tanks, and American advisors, but they use special non-military vocabulary, allowing them to do it under Article 9. B, the sterling evidence they read is so bad that if it was a real round, I would stop the round. It's from 2020 and concedes that Japan's already gone through the constitutional revision that should have triggered a Chinese response.
Okay, I'll take prep. Thanks. All right, starting now.
Okay, so I'm going to talk without muting on the thing so they can't hear, but I think this round is about to get really, really interesting. There's a couple reasons why. First, you have a bunch of impact turns on prolif, but instead of like the impact of like a nuclear war, obviously they're not arguing whether that's bad.
What was the war? Why we can't trust empirics?
Here, I'll turn.
Empirics.
Okay, so obviously you have. Yeah, I'll take this off. Obviously, you have they both impact out to like some sort of nuclear war. So that's not what's being impact turned. What's actually being impact turned is the idea of proliferation, whether that's good or bad, whether we should have nukes or whether we should not have nukes. So I think that makes the debate really interesting because now you have both teams arguing that nuclear war is something that we want to avoid, but should we proliferate or should we not proliferate? And that also gives another route so there isn't this like Taiwan-China clash where you don't really have to have this interaction between like between scenarios of like if China's going to invade Taiwan or if China's going to react in a reactionary right, and then you have a bunch of defense on the C2 on the neg. I think these responses are really good, and it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out and see what the AF decides to go for, given that the clash and the ways that they respond to the neg, what the neg goes for, given the fact that the way they respond to the AF depends on what they're going for at the same time. So we're going to kind of see that clash happen there, and I'm interested to see what happens.
Frontlining the neg, then going to the AF. My phone is about to die. Can I time on yours? Thanks. Okay. Everyone good? Start on the top of the neg. The first thing they read is a turn about how proliferation stops bioweapon proliferation, but then they forget to read an impact off of why bioweapons are actually worse than prolif, insofar as prolif leads to nuke war, as per our conceded link, and that has an extinction impact, and they don't have an impact. The turn's pretty easy for us here. Then they say that proliferation actually decreases interstate conflict. They just say that this, by their simulations, is better than empirics because simulations predict the future, whereas we say that our empirics are the way that we predict the past because they predict actually countries' actions, whereas their simulation can be literally any computer code. They don't tell you why it's a good simulation. That's something that they actually need to prove. Then they say with their Bernie card that Japan has had de facto nukes since 2016. This is pretty silly. If Japan had had a secret nuclear program for 6 years, the US probably would have detected it by now. You could say that anybody had a secret nuclear program anywhere on the internet. That doesn't mean that it should be taken as fact in the debate round. Also, there's a difference between something being tacit and secret and something being out in the open. When it's out in the open, that's what causes other countries to proliferate. That's what triggers our link. Then they say that ambiguity leads to miscalc. And this card again is from 2005. If their ambiguity was really so bad, it would have led to miscalc in the last 17 years. The last thing they say is that mutually assured destruction always exists, and so there's always a threat between countries, but it's not the same to have mutually assured destruction between two nuclear states that could actually proportionately respond, and mutually assured destruction where one country has a nuke, one country has a sub. That's an asymmetrical advantage where one country actually wants to use their nuke. Go to the C2 about China. Group the first two responses. I'm going to respond on their case. The second response, or the third response, is that the Chinese public views Taiwan as a reactionary war. The citizen's opinion doesn't matter. What matters is the opinion of the international community, which is why China is not willing to go through all that flack. Then they say that war will never be allowed under Japan's constitution. That's under Article 9 of the Constitution. That's literally what the resolution is. Then they say that Japan has been militarizing for years, but they've never taken offensive action. Again, that's what the resolution is. That's what specifically scares and provokes China. Finally, say the sterling evidence is bad. It's about the reinterpretation. It's just about one of the times that Abe reinterpreted the Constitution, not the actual revision that we're debating. But even so, if you don't like sterling, actually said the exact same thing more explicitly. Let's go to the app. At the top on uniqueness, the Olsen 22 evidence that they read as their only uniqueness is actually quite bad. It doesn't make a uniqueness claim. All it says is that if China were to invade, the West has to get ready for that hypothetical situation. The closest it comes is saying that China has repeatedly said they're going to. This evidence is a year old already at this point, and it's just posturing, never backed up by any military movement. Secondly, the Lopez 22 evidence, which is last month, the post states everything in the round, gives two warrants as to why China will never invade Taiwan. A, Russia's failure so far to overpower Ukraine, and the West rush to punish and isolate Russia for its invasion makes great power skeptical of similar actions. Because Russia's invasion has gone so poorly, Chinese officials are likely to be more cautious about sending troops into Taiwan. B, China has benefited from the relatively peaceful world order of recent decades. An invasion of Taiwan could disrupt the order and isolate China from the global economy. Third, their characterization of China as an actor who is willing to launch a full attack and opportunistically is completely ahistorical. USIP 22, although China has been active and assertive in its use of armed forces, Beijing has eschewed large-scale combat operations. China's engaged in provocations, confrontation, and even violent clashes, but it has refrained from massive interventions, invasions, or occupations of other countries since it invaded Vietnam in 1979. But even if you believe their entire uniqueness scenario, it puts them in a massive double bind. If they're right about the uniqueness and China is actually about to invade imminently, then even if you affirm, Japan doesn't have time to build up their defenses and close the strike gap, which means that the Taiwan scenario is non-unique anyway. Let's go to the link level. You turn it, deterrence only encourages Chinese aggression. Brands 21. Numerous scholars have analyzed when and why Beijing uses force. Most reach a similar conclusion. China attacks not when it feels confident about the future, but when it or worries that its enemies are closing in. That is independent proof of our second contention. The only way conflict starts is if we provoke China by making them feel threatened. Finally, on the impact level, the handling card gives two scenarios for how nuke war could start. Neither of them are linked into by the case. It's use it or lose it pressures if we actually attack China's mainland, not Taiwan. And the second is that the US sees it as a first use scenario under the Trump administration, but Biden shifted the policy. They don't have links into nuke war.
Cross?
Yeah, let me get water.
Yep.
Okay, I'm good.
First question. All right. So China doesn't want to invade anything.
Yes.
Cool. You can have a question.
Okay. Well, China doesn't want to invade without provocation, but I'll take a question.
Maybe.
Well, I mean, that's what the uniqueness in the round points do, and that's what I'm going to say now. Okay, so let's talk about this idea that Japan has like secret nuclear weapons. So
not really secret, but
okay, so if Japan has like a de facto nuclear state, how would that operate like without other countries detecting it?
They have. That's why I have a research paper that talks about their nuclear arsenal pretty explicitly.
Your research paper talks about their uranium.
No, it talks about how they're enriching plutonium for nuclear weapons.
Yeah, but it doesn't talk about how they've actually constructed any weapons. It just says for their national security and that hypothetically they could. But has Japan
you've clearly read this research paper much better than I have, because I'm pretty sure the card that I read in the round is pretty explicit that they've enriched plutonium for nuclear weapons.
Jerry,
then frontlines your response by talking about how the NPT is like total BS, and it really you get along by just being friends with America.
I didn't read a response about the NPT. Jerry, do they have a nuke? Has Japan made a nuke?
Yeah.
No, they haven't.
Yeah, they have.
Even if they
Katheryne,
have
it's my incredible research paper versus you.
Wait, but where in your research paper does it say that they have created a nuke? I hear the part about the plutonium. I do not hear the part that says they're like, so Japan created a nuke.
It's the card I read in round.
Okay.
It's pretty clear. It says Japan right now is enriching plutonium, and then the next line is, and that's why they're going to build a nuke.
No, it's not. Okay.
I didn't even send you the card.
That's
You're really confident about this, but you can have a question.
No, I just took one. You can take one.
All right, great. Let's talk about some impact scenarios. What do you think the most important impact is in the round?
Extinction.
Extinction? Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Let's talk about kind of the Japanese Constitution. Specifically, what does the topic alter about the Japanese Constitution?
They amend Article 9 to allow Japan to take offensive military action.
Nope. Allows them to build military weapons, not take actions.
That's not correct. And even so, if they built military weapons, that would not be any disruption from the status quo where they can have military weapons.
Okay, so they can build weapons in the status quo.
They can build defensive weapons, but they don't. The majority of their weapons come from the US.
Okay, but they can have weapons in the status quo.
For defensive purposes.
Okay, so why hasn't China like gone absolutely crazy and invaded everything?
The change the resolution is suggesting is that Japan can use those weapons for offensive purposes, which is what provokes China.
Oh, they
Again,
could have. Okay, wait. So China is all of a sudden going to be really worried that now Japan's not abiding by a piece of paper, so we gotta go in.
No, it's that their piece of paper says that they can do something which China doesn't want them to do. It's
okay, so they're not worried about their nukes right now, but they are worried about a piece of paper going away.
Oh my god.
That's fine.
Japan does not have nukes.
It's time for summary.
We'll take prep.
Okay, so I'm gonna answer some questions quickly, and then if I have time, we will go over it, the round so far. So Sarong asked, how do I attend Nova? Can you walk us through the process? The process is super easy. Go to Nova Debate, I think .org. Nova Debate. novadebate.org. If you go to register, there will be a Google form. It won't take you more than 5 minutes to fill out. We'll just need your email, your name, some general information about your debate experience. If you have a partner who wants to sign up, then you can have your partner sign up with you and you can put their name down. If you don't, then we can pair you with someone at your similar experience level. And then you'll be signed up. We're going to be closing signups on April 31st. We may extend them a little bit depending on things. And then we'll send some confirmation emails. We will put together pairings and stuff like that. All right.
Yo, Viv, are you trying to talk to the live stream? Oh, but you're muted on Zoom. All right, cool. All right. I gave a summary in February, so we'll see how this goes. The order is going to be the AF case, and then it's going to be the neg case, and there's going to be a weighing overview at the top of the neg case. Anybody not ready? All right, cool. There's no scenario for Chinese invasion. We will concede that Russia's failure to invade Ukraine makes China significantly more scared of Taiwanese invasion. This massively outweighs their link arguments because it means that even if China feels threatened, they think that any kind of invasion of a country like Japan would inevitably fail and be a massive military loss to them, which makes their geopolitical situation more dangerous, even more applicable to Japan, because Japan is more of a military power than Taiwan or Ukraine. Independently, will concede that the peaceful order is massively more good for the Chinese economy and global strategic positioning, and that they historically avoid an invasion. This includes situations where they've been encircled since the 70s, which answers all of your link arguments. Now, their case, starting with the wing overview. You should hold second summary to the strategic mistakes of second rebuttal because my decision making is based on the second rebuttal, so you shouldn't allow a bunch of new arguments in second summary. Latent proliferation massively outweighs, and there's a bunch of mishandled arguments. First, they have conceded our ambiguity arguments. It's the root cause of miscalculation because the reason that nuclear miscalculation can happen is because countries don't know what is going to happen, which is significantly more likely when they don't know how large a country's nuclear arsenal is, which means it's significantly better for countries to develop nuclear weapons openly, which will be explained more on the link debate. Second, openness creates international regulations because countries like the United States are able to manage the Japanese nuclear program using things like sanctions and treaties, which cannot happen when opaque proliferation is happening, which stops the proliferation at the point where it is proportional and stops Chinese lash out, which answers all of their internal links. Third, you have dropped a nuclear terror impact. Game over. First, you have conceded that opaque proliferation creates a higher risk of nuclear terror because it's easier for terrorists to get weapons that nobody knows exist. It is a 100% probability, which means it outweighs their scenarios because they have dropped it, gives us 100% strength of link. Second, it's significantly more likely to cause nuclear war. Their scenario is not explained, but nuclear terrorists are irrational and have an incentive to create more destruction, which will explain more in the mutually assured destruction flow. The prolif line by line proper. Yes, proliferation. Now, the only argument in second rebuttal was that we would have detected it by now. Zero warrant. You can obviously hide proliferation programs for years. Independently, our argument is that they have been enriching mass amounts of plutonium. No, they have not started developing an actual weapon yet, but our evidence says that there is zero reason for Japan to refine this much plutonium absent the construction of a weapon, which proves 100% risk of proliferation. Now, you say, yes, you would say openness is bad, zero warrant, second rebuttal. This was explained on the overview. You say our evidence is from 2005. I don't care. It's an analysis of the way countries react to opaque proliferation, which hadn't happened yet at that point, but we say it's happening now. Our very more recent evidence is from 2016. Now, the mutually assured destruction debate. Oh yeah. Also, Japan. The argument is that Japan is proliferating now opaquely. Article 9 makes them proliferate openly. That is their internal link. Mutually assured destruction. Mutually assured destruction always exists. Countries have submarine silos, spread out weapons, etc., which makes it impossible for a first strike to take out all of their nuclear capabilities. You did not extend a warrant in second rebuttal. Independently, we have read evidence that empirically proliferation versus conflict less likely.
We'll take prep.
All right, I'm gonna hold back on questions. We're gonna talk a little bit about that summary. I think that summary was really good. It did some really nice strategic moves. I think that collapsing or conceding that China will never invade, like that, and then having offense as a backup was really strategic for the AF. Let's talk about why. First, the AF has a sole contention. They'd have to frontline a lot in order to get like this minuscule piece of offense that they might not even win uniqueness on. So it's definitely a better strategic move to go for something that you can frontline in like 1 to 2 responses, already have some sort of developed weighing, can develop weighing even more on, which you saw that Sean did. So conceding that China is never going to invade, regardless of Taiwan, regardless of if they're provoked or just in the squo, was a really good idea because it gets rid of this really awful uniqueness debate that AF doesn't know that they're going to even win on the link level, let alone the uniqueness level. So talking about prolif, the way the debate is breaking down is whether prolif is better if it happens in the open or if it happens in hiding. What AF is arguing is that right now Japan is proliferating, but it's happening in hiding. It's better if it happens out in the open, which can happen during Article 9. During Article 9, they're actually going to be openly militarizing, which means that the U.S. can like have sanctions, treaties, can kind of control the situation. Second, ambiguity is the root cause of miscalculation. And third is nuclear terrorism, which in rebuttal, there is already an impact given, and then Sean expands upon that, giving a warrant as to why nuclear terrorism is really, really bad because there's no mutually assured destruction, because nuclear terrorists are really irrational. So you have 3 pieces of weighing as to why that's the best link into extinction or some sort of nuclear war scenario, and as to why it's worse when proliferation happens opaquely versus or like in hiding versus out in the open. And then obviously Sean extended as to why mutually assured destruction always exists, and as to why nuclear war can only happen through the methods that they talked about. Yeah. So that is my recap on that. And I'll answer some more questions. Will the blocks be posted in the description? I don't know yet. A lot of it was analytical and a lot of it was old prep. We can see if we can put that together. But honestly, if you flow the round, you should be able to get enough of it that you'll have some good analytics for your rounds. Let's see. Who's correct about the nuclear research paper? I don't know. I'd have to check that out after the round. And that will definitely actually become a huge point in clash, because obviously the only way that Sean and Jeremiah can win this debate at this point is their offense is reliant on the idea that Japan already is creating nukes or proliferating, and that it's better if that happens in the open. So there's a big burden of proof for the AF to argue why they already have nukes right now.
Weighing overview, my case. I guess their case, but not like really. Is everyone good? Sounds good. Start on the weighing overview where, oh, never mind. That wasn't about the round, I guess.
Jeremiah did gaslight being crossed though.
Okay. Start on the weighing overview where Sean basically cites the rules of PF back to me. No, I won't read new arguments in second summary. That's fine. Move to our C1. They try to tell you that Japan is nuclearizing right now, and so it's better when they're doing it in the open because of risks of miscalculation. They misunderstand our argument. Our argument is that Japan militarizes with conventional weapons, which scares South Korea into proliferating. That is the only world in which you see South Korea proliferate. We tell you this is worse for two reasons. The first is that they never proved that South Korea nuclearizes in the open. You probably see at worst the same risks. We tell you we see worse risks in the world with South Korea because historically Japan, if you believe what they're saying, has been doing this for years at this point, and we haven't seen this miscalculation. When you believe that continues into the future, you don't believe that about South Korea because they are a new nuclear program, much higher risk of miscalculation. With that in mind, move on to our second contention. This is where we win the round. Pruitt tells you that historically China is a reactionary actor. They're not looking to start new conflicts. However, Axleaf tells you that when Japan militarizes because of its specific history with China and China's institutional memory of this history, what you see happen is China feeling encircled and then lashing out at Taiwan or everywhere else. Wadsworth tells you that for this reason, we see war cascading through the region. This quickly draws in the United States, starting a nuclear conflict, which Wilkman tells you kills everyone. They extend one response, which tells you that China will never go to war for the same reasons that we read on their side of the flow. What this doesn't take into account is China's specific relationship with Japan. We tell you that because China remembers the atrocities of Japan before Japan adopted Article 9, they are going to view that as a specifically distinct actor from every other actor on the globe. When you see uniquely Japan provoking China, they lash out. We see this massive conflict. At the end of the day, by our nuclear war scenario on our C2 over theirs anyway, for two reasons. The first is historically, by that this is the way that nuclear war happens. In the past, we haven't seen miscalculation triggering a war. Instead, we've seen different actors striking each other. By that a China who is provoked by Japanese retaliation is historically more likely to drop a nuclear weapon than some random actor that they don't specify having a miscalculation incident. Two, because we are seeing an actual nuclear exchange as opposed to just a random incident of miscalculation, by that probably does more damage and kills more people. All of our evidence is specific to a nuclear exchange, which we tells you happens and causes extinction. All of their evidence says doesn't actually say that a single incident could cause extinction, probably worse.
Time frame.
But even so, remember, wait, why does that matter?
Time.
Even so, let's look to time frame. We tell you that the second that Japan repeals this, we say that China strikes immediately because they fear a future conflict. What
Never
are
mind.
you talking about, man?
Different stuff.
That's time.
Are we doing grand? All right. Jared, do you have anything, or should I do it?
Go for it.
All right, y'all good? Are y'all good? Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
we're
good.
fine.
Oh, okay. You're not taking prep. Do you want to take prep before grant? Oh wait, we're first. Never mind. All right. Can I do question?
Yeah.
All right. Cool. Cool. So hang on. Can you explain your scenario? Because there's something again about like China first strike immediately. Did you go? Are you going for? Yeah. Can you explain your?
Don't worry about the end
Our
part.
wires got crossed.
Oh, okay. Can you explain it anyway? Because I'm still a little bit confused.
Oh well, it's like not a thing. So
No, like the scenario, the impact scenario that you extended and are going for. What is it?
Oh yeah. Well, it's just what we read in case.
Yeah, can you explain the way that the escalation scenario that you have extended happens?
Oh yeah. So when Japan militarizes, China feels encircled. Conflicts start probably across the region everywhere that they'd have a flashpoint.
Wait, hang on. Why? Okay, so who strikes first?
So either China or the US, who the Wadsworth evidence concludes will get pulled.
Why would the
into
US why would the US strike first?
So the US gets pulled into the conventional conflict. Who does the first nuclear strike is up to how the conflict goes, but the Wadsworth evidence specifies that once there's a war across East Asia, between China and
All right,
Japan.
I got
The
you.
US is pulled into the conflict.
You
And then-
can have a question. You can have a question.
Sure.
All right.
Wait.
Okay. Does South Korea have like this de facto nuclear program?
Don't care. Our argument is going to be that you have read evidence in case that South Korean proliferation would trigger a spillover effect to the rest of East Asia, which still triggers our internal links with Japan.
Wait. But
Our
none of
argument
the
is
evidence-
Japan prolif good. You have read evidence that East Asia proliferates following South Korean proliferation, which means even if South Korean proliferation happens first, it's still.
Wait, I'm pretty sure that none of our evidence is specific to South Korean proliferation spilling over to Japan.
You literally read SOCO destroys NPT, like I have on my flow, causes global prolif. If you didn't read global prolif, you wouldn't have an internal link to the Kronig evidence because that's what it's about.
Yeah, no, I understand that. I'm asking if there's any piece of evidence specific to Japan.
You have read global prolif
You're-
evidence. There is zero reason that South Korean proliferation would cause proliferation in like Bosnia and not Japan.
Well, wait. There are a lot of reasons. The most prevalent of
None
which
of
is
them
that
are
Japan
listed
has the
before right
backing of
now.
the US.
Also, yeah,
But
None of them
again,
are listed before.
wait, we
right
read
now.
Japan
Also,
prolif good.
I got it. The way that this link is articulated also isn't explained until literally right now. which
Wait,
means
what?
that any-
It was
We
explained
read-
in first
We
summary.
read cards
Also,
tagged
even-
Japan prolif good in first rebuttal, and then
Yes,
second
but you don't
summary
read the
says
link
we
from
didn't
our
read it.
scenario to
But even
Japanese
so-
prolif.
Yeah, but even so, we functionally concede the like implicit defense that your argument about Japan poses, right? When a state that doesn't want to break the NPT because of international backlash wants to proliferate, they proliferate in secret. So why wouldn't South Korea do the same thing? For your argument, they probably do, which
What?
means you can see the open proliferation, you don't see the cascade. Instead, you see
Also
the same
wasn't
area
in
just with
second-
South Korea.
Also was not in second summary, but it's fine.
Wait.
Jared, we have like some prep left.
Do you want to take it? I'm probably fine.
I don't care.
Okay. Prolif debate. Framing overview at the top. Let me turn off my music. All right. Okay. No risk of a Chinese invasion scenario. The uniqueness is conceded in two different places. A point, they concede on our kind of prolif scenario that already Japan has been militarizing for years in secret and publicly. This triggers their kind of idea that China invades the moment Japan militarizes. Means they should have invaded years ago, but they haven't because of the 3 or 4 reasons that they read on our case. They say specifically that China has military and economic interest to never invade another nation because they know that they would get entangled in a war with the U.S. That's why they haven't invaded in the past and won't invade in the future, even despite Japanese militarization. It's not happening. Means kind of the only risk of offense in this round is coming off of the prolif scenario. So let's go there. On the prolif scenario, here's our arguments. Right now, Japan is proliferating, but in secret because they don't want to violate Article 9 in the NPT. But that's a super opaque proliferation, so they can get around that. This is proven by our Bernie evidence, which is straight conceded. Finds they're enriching a lot of plutonium now, way more plutonium than for nuclear power. The only reason they would be enriching so much is for making nuclear weapons, which is a conceded argument. That's why specifically Japan's militarizing now. But this opaque militarization is way worse because in order to get the materials, they need to go through under channels that allow terrorists to get access to nuclear weapons, causes nuclear terror, which is way worse than nuclear war. I'm going to do the weighing here. The kind of mad cards are conceded throughout the round. When 2 nuclear powers go to war, they don't want to nuke each other because they know that any one nuke would cause another nuke to get launched. That's why a scenario like theirs, where China and the US go head to head, never goes nuclear, but nuclear terror definitely does. Nuclear terrorists are irrational and untargetable, not worried about mutually assured destruction, which means they're the only chance for any kind of nuclear scenario happening in the round. And the impact evidence is all specific to like 1 or 2 nukes going off, causing extinction through a nuclear winter. So even one act of nuclear terrorism does trigger extinction. Round is super. Oh, and the SOCO stuff. On the SOCO stuff, if South Korea proliferates, the proliferation still happens in Japan as well. It still collapses the NPT, which is still good for us because the NPT collapses. All this proliferation is happening in the clear. This is their link from case. In order to win this round, they have to like make hella new arguments on final focus, hold them to second summary. It doesn't do enough work.
Okay. Everyone good? Okay. Can I have your phone again?
Yes.
Thanks. Actually, one sec. Okay. Everyone good? All right. Their entire final focus strategy is predicated on the idea that Japan gets nukes because South Korea is provoked by Japanese conventional militarization, a link that we never read in case. Nothing about our case is specific to South Korean nuclearization spilling over to Japan. This needed to be a link articulated earlier than the first final focus in the round, if it's what they were going to go for. They say that global prolif means it's specific enough to Japan. If they had said that earlier in the round, I would have said that Japan doesn't feel a need to proliferate against South Korea because they have the backing of the US. It is a specific scenario. They don't get to bring out a new link in first final focus and then shake their heads when I respond to it. Pretty stupid. Then let's talk about the line by line stuff that's conceded in Jeremiah's final. Since all of the stuff about the openness versus closeness is basically washed, what's actually conceded is what Sophia says, which is that South Korea has a much higher risk of miscalculation because Japan has the same risk of miscalculation that they've had since their program came out in 2016. Obviously, nothing has triggered yet. The only risk of actual miscalculation comes from South Korea's new program, open or not open. It is a new program. Secondly, as Sophia says, if countries really want to dodge the NPT, to not get smacked with proliferation, the same applies to South Korea. So South Korea would just nuclearize unopenly. We get an equal link into their impact. On the weighing, they just say that mutually assured destruction still applies. They flow through all of Sophia's weighing. Sophia's weighing is that historically, the only way that we've ever seen nuclear conflict is between two actors, never through miscalculation. And secondly, I don't remember what the second link was. At that point, round over. Our second contention is the easiest way for you to vote. Our argument is that right now China is not doing anything, but when provoked by Japanese militarization, they will feel backed up against the wall, especially because of their history with Japan. That will cause them to lash out against the region. The US will get involved, and there will be cascades of conflict against all across East Asia that will lead to the use of a nuke between either two nuclear states or several. I don't know. Either way, it is the biggest link into nuclear war. Mutually assured destruction doesn't necessarily stop it because it's not necessarily between two nuclear countries. The last thing they say is that all of our conflicts are also all of our reasons that China won't invade still stop this. No, they flow through, and Sophia says that China has the memory of Japan's atrocities on the mind. They say Japan has been nuclearizing or has been militarizing privately. Our argument is that it's perceptual. Once they announce that they could attack, that's what causes China to be provoked. Very easy for the neg.
Good round.
Good debate.
Good round.
Viv, what are we doing?
We gotta go.
Yeah.
Oh,
really
right.
good round, y'all. Katheryne and Sophia have to go, but thank you so much for coming and doing this debate. Thank you. Jerry and Sean, if y'all want to stick around and do like a quick recap of the round, or if y'all want to go, that's all. Okay.
I can chill.
I can chill as well.
Okay, cool. Let's hear y'all's thoughts and let's go over some like big strategic decisions. I think the first one that I want to go over is the decision to read these prolif good turns in a way, but like saying that opaque proliferation is worse. What was the strategic decision there?
Their case is super weak to prolif good, and our case kind of sucks.
Yeah, like so. Second rebuttal reads a shit ton of arguments on our case, which kind of demonstrates that they had a lot of prep for it. The only impact to prolif was Kronig, which is not a good card. Which is why I talked about it in cross, because it doesn't really say anything. So generally, if you're looking to go for like an impact turn strategy, first thing you should be doing is thinking about how good their impact cards are, because in public forum, they usually won't read new impact cards. So if you see they have like one prolif bad card that's not that good, you have like 6 prolif good cards, might as well read them.
Also, adding to that, if you're going to go for a start like this, you need to do what I did in rebuttal, which is weighing your evidence versus theirs, or like their scenario. I didn't do it like that great, but that needs to happen, or the round gets terribly confusing very fast. Yeah, because you are weighing impacts.
And I think the weighing that Sean does in summary is also really good, where you have 3 reasons as to why opaque like proliferation is worse, and then it does some sort of probability analysis, and like adds some good weighing warrants. I don't really know. Yeah, I guess it's just probability analysis. I think the second thing I want to go over is why, or what did you think of how they combated going for those turns with this South Korea scenario? And like, how do you think that scenario could have been more easily resolved, or like, what was the difficulty there?
Yeah, I mean, like, in general, when you're getting out-carded on an impact debate, it's generally a good idea to go for a sneaky no-link. If anyone here is watching Policy Rounds, watch the NDT finals from this year. The negative goes for climate change good. They're clapping the affirmative on climate change good. And then the AF goes for we actually don't solve climate change, which the negative's not prepared for, and ends up winning.
It's a good round.
I guess, yeah, very good round. In general, if you don't think you can win the impact level, you need to find a way to get out of the impact turns. If you think you can beat the impact turns, then it is best to go for the impact and just outweigh. You generally don't want to do both. But yeah, definitely a good decision in this round, just because like we were outcarding them like 4-1, so it makes sense to just go for a different impact and win.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And then lastly, I don't know, any other, things about the round that stood out that you'd like to tell the audience?
Jerry?
I don't know. I don't know if the AF rebuttal strat was that good, knowing what we do in second rebuttal. That's my opinion. I think that if I were the AF here, I would not read defense on Chinese invasion.
Yeah.
And I think if I were to redo this round, I would read a lot more defense on their C2. I'd probably go quicker in rebuttal. Those are my thoughts.
I would agree. I also think like reading an impact of bioweapons would have been good.
Yes.
Yeah, I think like just like reading more cards would have been good. But we didn't have them because we don't do PF anymore.
Oh, I guess one more question is, there is this kind of uniqueness back and forth that I flowed on the AF case, but it's kind of just flowed in the void between both pieces of China offense. But it's obviously y'all concede the fact that China won't ever invade and use their own impact, like what they read themselves against them, and concede it. And then there's this back and forth of like China has a specific relationship with Japan where they'll always retaliate because they like remember these atrocities, or what y'all say, which is like Japan has been militarizing and their scenario should have already triggered China, and then you have these additional warrants as to why China would not invade, such as like not wanting to get the U.S. involved, the economic harms to them. They don't want to like lose a bunch of like global trading partners. How do you think that uniqueness debate could have been cleared up in an additional way? Because you kind of just have this back and forth that does progress and you get new warrants, but like further than that.
You have to weigh, like when you're trying to, so what happened here is they read link defense to an argument that they are reading a link to. The argument that they're going for is that their link is stronger than the defense that they're going for. So when that happens, the team that is going for the defensive argument needs to weigh that defense against the link. NGL didn't pay attention to Final Focus, so maybe Jeremiah did this, but I tried to, in summary, by just saying, like, outweighs their link arguments, makes even more sense in the context of Japan, because Japan is stronger than Ukraine, independently history answers their, like, encirclement arguments. Generally, you just want to make it as explosive as possible.
I don't remember if I did that. I'm not gonna lie. I may have not.
I don't really care. You did. It is fine.
All right. Yeah, thank you all so much for coming and debating. What I'm going to do now is if anyone has questions about Nova, feel free to stick them in the chat. if you have any questions about the round as well. If not, then we're going to end the live stream. All I want to say is Nova is completely free. It's a great opportunity. If you have 1 week this summer and you want to work on your debate skills, work with any of the 4 instructors plus a bunch more that you saw. The 4 instructors in this round plus a bunch more that are equally as qualified and really great and really want to help out. Then sign up. I think it's really worth it. You're going to get some practice rounds in there. You're going to get some lectures and also just lab time with these instructors who, as you see, are really great debaters and have a lot of knowledge and wisdom of the activity and how to have some really cool rounds. If I'll wait for some questions, and if not, then we'll end the live.
If the people want the Zoom link.
They want the Zoom link. But yeah, I've been spamming the link. Go sign up. It's really worth it. I think so. I attended between freshman and sophomore year, I attended, then I instructed last year, and now I'm directing, and it's just been an amazing experience working with Nova and everyone who's instructed for us, and obviously Evan and Karen and Anmol and Nathaniel, and everyone's really great. So I'd recommend it. I don't really see any questions. Oh, how do I be as slay as all of you? I don't know. Sean and Jeremiah are pretty slay. So, Sean, how am I as slay as you?
Who asked about slaying?
Dasha.
So like, I mean, you know, it's a process. You just gotta like, you know, trust the process, stand the grind.
That's like gatekeep girl boss.
Yeah, that.
Jerry, you a girl boss?
I am a girl boss.
Oh yeah.
So true.
All right.
Also, you have to go for impact turns.
Okay.
All right, we chill.
Yeah. All right.